So just to explain, so the document has the 2 pages that we used in training that summarize the PowerPoint slides that we have, and I've combined both of those into the same document. So depending on how you like to see your information, some people want to see it on slides where it's a little bit easier, and then others are, rather it in sort of the condensed format.
Okay.
So I am Beth Malo. I'm not Jennifer Hale. Currently the president for Louisiana PTA. Hang on, I didn't want that to get big. So signups and downloads. Make sure that you register with Louisiana PTA. I don't remember if I checked to see if you were or not.
I should be.
You getting our emails?
School year. Yes, I do get your emails. That's how I knew
Okay.
about that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're good. At the toolkits page, so /toolkits, we have the secretary toolkit. We also have the /secretary, the secretary's page that has lots of information. You can create an account at pta.org and have access to their information. As a side note, the active affiliation is due October 31st, which is sort of the legal part of running a nonprofit and keeping all those things up to date. And then get a binder to organize your files, or you can go completely digital. I just figured this out for some reason this year, and I'm kind of so excited about it. Because like for Louisiana PTA, we're 102 years old, and I should have 102 years of minutes because you're supposed to keep them forever. I do not, but I did have binders and binders and binders of papers. And so I've gone through them and figured out what I need to keep, what I don't need to keep, and what I need to keep, I'm scanning in. Okay. And having digital copies, I don't need to keep the paper copies. And then I have multiple places where the digital files are backed up on the cloud with Google Drive and on flash drives, thumb drives or whatever, and sharing those links with my other executive committee members. So going digital is the way to go.
That's what our last year's president did over the summer. She got all, because of course we had the binders, we had to, if you were over a certain committee, you had to meet the executive board and sign here, sign there. So they did that over the summer, condensed it all to a digital file.
Yeah, so it makes such a big difference, and then having multiple backups of it. So okay, that's great to hear. So the secretary is a member of the executive committee. The executive committee are the elected officers who are also on the board of directors. Your basic duties are outlined in your PTA bylaws, which you should have a copy of if you need them. Do you know if you have your bylaws?
I do.
Okay. Do you know when they expire?
Oh gosh, 2025.
Okay, so y'all are good. They expire every 3 years. So have those handy. And it took me years of PTA work before I finally read my bylaws, if I'm honest. So just read them. They kind of contain a lot of helpful information, and it's good to know what's even in them.
Okay.
You distribute, okay, so minutes, you share the minutes to the members of the meeting body that the minutes came from, if that made any sense. So if you have a board meeting, the minutes from the board meeting go to the next board meeting. If you have a general membership meeting, which is where everybody is there, all the members are invited, then they would only get the minutes from the previous general membership meeting.
Okay.
You always want to have your records ready for review from previous meetings if needed. And then you want to maintain an accurate membership roster so that for voting and that kind of thing, if it comes to it, you want to be able to know who's a member and who is not. All board of directors, like the committee chairs and all of those people, need to be paid members of the PTA. And then at general membership meetings, only those who are members can vote.
Mhm.
I think you know what the bylaws are. Standing rules are something that the PTA unit can make themselves that just goes into more detail of what they do and how things work. So like if you might list, you have a newsletter committee and the newsletter is made once a month and it's distributed this way and printed that way, et cetera, et cetera. So they're just more standard, detailed rules that are only kept for the PTA's use.
Okay.
A quorum, that is the minimum number of members needed for PTA to conduct business or to vote on a motion. So the quorum so there are three types of meetings. One is an executive committee meeting, which is just the officers. Most PTAs I've been on, we've really kind of never had these, but that is one type. The second, and then the quorum for the executive committee is the majority. So if you have 4 people, it would be 3.
Okay.
A board of directors meeting is also a majority of its members. You don't count anybody twice. And if there's like co-chairs on a committee, they only get 1 vote per committee. And then the quorum for general membership meetings is listed in your bylaws.
And ours is 15.
Okay. So the board of directors is the main governing body of the PTA. It's the elected officers and committee chairs or heads, which are listed either in the bylaws or standing rules. Parliamentary procedure is the set of rules that for conducting orderly and fair meetings. So these are all covered in the book called Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. You don't have to have the book to understand the rules. They have a website with the frequently asked questions and lots of helpful information. I also have on our website /meetings a page that does a summary of the meetings. It's really more geared for the presidents, but it'll probably also help you just to sort of see how things run. The minutes are the official record of all meetings. They're kept forever and become the PTA's history. They're available for all PTA members. It's the record of what was done and not everything that was said. So personal opinions and discussions are excluded. They're written efficiently and concisely and should be typed. And then motions are statements that describe a proposed action or decision that is made by the PTA. So because you make decisions as a group, that decision has is called a motion and it has a format to make things more democratic and fair. So the contents of the minutes, this is sort of a typical layout using an outline format, although this can be varied in many, many ways. And usually the president will do the agenda and you're following that agenda. But it has a heading, which has the meeting type. So executive committee, board of directors, or general membership meeting, the PTA name, date, and location of the meeting. You have the call to order by the person's name and the time that the meeting started. It might have an optional opening. So this might be the Pledge of Allegiance or saying the PTA mission or whatever. Attendance. So for executive committee and board of directors, you want to always list the names of people that attended. You can either type them out in the minutes at this spot, or you can see attached sign-in sheet. And then you want to include if the quorum was or was not established, if they had the minimum number of people there to conduct business. Then usually you have the secretary's report. So this would say something like, the minutes from the previous meeting were either read, distributed, or emailed, and approved or approved as corrected. So you would get feedback and basically say the minutes were emailed to you, or however that you distribute them. They were, hand them around a meeting. Does anybody have any corrections? And then basically, hearing none, the minutes are approved as presented, kind of wording. You could also say that the reading of the minutes was waived and approved as distributed. It's rare that we read the minutes, I have to say. Everybody's sort of like, yeah, we're good. But it can be waived, the reading of the minutes. Then you do the treasurer's report. So you would list the bank account name and then the dollar amount. You can round this up. You don't need to do cents. And all of the accounts that you have. So this is just an example where there's also a Cheddar Up account online, and there's 209 that hadn't been transferred. The president's report, you would list the things that the president talks about. Principal's report, if there is one, then you go into committees. Sometimes the agenda that the president does could have an old business section, a new business section, announcements, and then, I forget to have on here, what's it called when the meeting adjourns? And then it should have on here adjournment, but it does not. So you would note the time that the meeting ended. So while taking the minutes, you can follow the outline or format of the meeting agenda. It can be an outline or narrative form. Agenda is usually done by the president, although sometimes the president can ask the secretary to do it. If you take handwritten notes, it's supposed to be done in a bound journal with numbered pages. But you can also just type the minutes during a meeting and not use the journal at all. If there's a discussion, and stop me at any point, by the way, if you want to talk about anything.
Oh, no, you're great. Thank you.
Okay. If there's a discussion over an issue, so they're debating, should we decide to do X or should we decide to do Z? You only would record what the final decision is. It's always done in third person, and always ask for clarification if you miss something during the meeting. Draft versus approved minutes. So the minutes should be typed within 5 days of the meeting. You want to number the pages, include all reports. So if there's a budget report or whatever else might have been distributed at the meeting. It's a good idea to have the president preview the minutes before you distribute them. And those are technically called the draft minutes. So at the next meeting, the secretary distributes and technically reads, or that can be waived, the draft minutes. You ask for any corrections. And then this says they are made in red ink by drawing a line through the error with a correction written above or in the margin. So this is if you have paper copies or if you have your journal that you're writing in, but you're probably not going to have that. So instead, you would just make the edits on your document. Minutes can be corrected whenever an error is noticed, regardless of the time that has lapsed. It just takes a 2/3 vote to do that after that initial approval. So then the secretary would say that the minutes are approved as read or approved as corrected and signs the minutes, or saves the document. If you have a copy of your signature, or if you can draw with your finger on your document, that also can work. A motion is not go ahead.
The corrections are only to be noted on the written version. If you write them, they don't have to be on the typed version. They can just be corrected or edited.
Yeah, it could just be corrected.
Okay.
Technically, you could maybe do the strike through where you show edits on your document, but I don't see it as an issue. So a motion is not needed to approve the minutes. And so once this process has gone through, the minutes then become the official approved minutes. So recording a motion. So the process of making motions ensures that all decisions are fairly discussed and voted on. You record the name of the person who made the motion, whether it was seconded, the exact motion verbatim, so how they said it, how the vote was taken, and if the motion passed or failed. If a motion is withdrawn, it's as if it never happened, so you don't need to include it in the minutes. And if a motion is not seconded, then it cannot continue to be discussed and it dies. So the point of a second is if somebody is trying to talk about something that's completely ridiculous and nobody else wants to talk about it, then you don't talk about it. So that's the point of having a second. Only record the final version of a motion. It could be that during discussion it sort of evolves and changes. You would only do the final one. There's a motion form in the Secretary toolkit. You probably don't need to use this, but it basically just lets you track or write down this information, but it's really kind of not necessary at all. So this example, a motion was made, this is how you would type it in the minutes. A motion was made by Carl Cleveland and seconded, you don't need that person's name, to approve the proposed PTA budget. A verbal vote was taken, motion passed. So if it was a ballot vote, then you record the actual tally. There were 13 yeses and 2 nos. Motion passed. So the format of a motion, you want to indent the motion on your document. And so this is another one. A motion was made by Tay Jones and seconded to purchase a vehicle for their principal. A paper ballot was taken with 1 yes and 12 no's. The motion failed. Shoot, I was about to say something and I have lost it. Maybe it'll come to me.
Probably that motion that got to you, the purchase of the vehicle.
I know. I put something on there that was ridiculous. Yeah, I always do little things that only I know and only I laugh at. Nobody else would be laugh, but okay. So records retention policy, as a secretary, you technically keep the record. So permanently, you're supposed to keep the minutes, bylaws, standing rules, and your PTA charter information. 7 years would be contracts, leases, budgets adopted at meetings, financial reports, and grant agreements. 3 years are bank statements, deposit forms, expense forms, and general correspondence. 1 year is routine emails, the confidentiality, ethics, and conflict of interest policy, which is in your toolkit, and then insurance policies and claims. The secretary's binder. So this is one way of organizing it. Of course, if you're doing files, then you don't need to have tabs. And this kind of doesn't apply, but things that you would include in your files would be the summary of PTA accounts, usernames and passwords. This is something that I'm trying to get the presidents to share with the executive committee so that all of the information is not with just one person. So for me at state, I share with my executive committee all of my passwords, all of the accounts, all of the logins, all of the email things, so that if something happens, it's all documented and can be passed on easily, or even just at the end of my term, that it's able to be passed on easily. Your board roster, agendas, minutes, meeting rosters, committee reports. If you have paper at your meeting, you can take a picture and turn it into a scanned document pretty easily. Do you know how to do that?
Yes, on the notes section.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have your membership roster or spreadsheet of those names and emails, any notes, campaigns, welcome packet, flyers. You want to have the toolkits saved. We have several of them that you should probably have. We have one for the Louisiana PTA office and National PTA Basics. There's one for board of directors. There's one for elections, one for bylaws and standing rules and articles of incorporation, and secretary. You want to have your charter information, your IRS taxes, Secretary of State annual report, insurance policy, and any past audit reports. So the treasurer and the president should have things like that also. I have a sample meeting on the secretary's webpage from this past summer from Louisiana PTA. And it's not the best meeting because I didn't actually have to make any motions during the meeting, but I wanted to get something up. And so I have that there for now. I'll probably add another one. I think we might have another meeting next week. So I'll probably do another one that hopefully we'll have a motion, just as an example. I don't even know if we do. I do want to share something else. So on our website, if you haven't gone yet, under Run Your PTA, there's the secretary page. I have a sample agenda, a sample sign-in sheet. You want to know that everybody on the board has is a paid member. The confidentiality agreement is on here. I have last year's secretary meeting, which is probably pretty similar to what we have right now. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is the board meeting from August with the agenda and then the minutes that you can just sort of compare the two and see an actual meeting and how it went. And then I have last year's secretary PowerPoint PDF on there. And then the toolkit is here, which you can download and use. I do have the entire toolkit under the toolkit page. Is here, and it's in the Word format. So if there was something that you wanted to edit or change in any way, you can download the Word document and do that. Under Run Your PTA, I have the meetings page. So this has a little bit more about parliamentary procedure, which is more of the president's thing, but still you might want to know it, how things work. This is different types of motions and what is needed. So not all motions actually need a second. If it's coming out of committee, like maybe you had the budget committee that created the budget, it doesn't technically need to be seconded because it's already come in a committee, and so that means therefore more than one person has already agreed to talk about it. The steps to making a motion. So contents of the minute. This is just the summary from the secretary's toolkit for presidents to be able to see that as well. So we pretty much went over all of this. I have on here a sample of how you might write the results from elections. This is something that is really important because the banks need to have this and they need to have it properly documented. So this says, so no nominations from the floor were submitted. You can't have people who nominate beyond what the nominating committee suggests for officers. So this is assuming nobody else, that it wasn't a contested election. A verbal vote was taken and the slate of officers was accepted. The elected board of, actually that should say executive committee and not board of directors, is, and then the 4 names and their positions, or however many names in their positions. I would list any officers who are being removed from the bank account. And tell me again which PTA you're with.
Eden Gardens.
Okay, so that's in
Shreveport.
Shreveport. Okay, I wanted to say Shreveport, but then I was double checking myself. So y'all can't have debit cards, so those won't be on there. So I think that kind of covers everything. Is there anything else you can think of that you're uncomfortable with or Not sure?
No, not at all. Like I said, I'd looked over a lot of the information earlier when I saw that the meetings were being held this week. So I
Mhm.
kind of went through everything, but no, not at this current moment. No.
Okay. Um, well, if you ever have a question, we're always a phone call away. And you should have what you need. And Egarns is a good, strong PTA. So I know y'all will be doing good over there.
Well, thank you.
And you're very welcome. And if you need anything else, let me know. Otherwise, you can get back to enjoying your evening.
Thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. And thank you again for your time.
You're welcome. Thank
Have
you. Bye.